Mojang may have just given us a super smelter revolution with the introduction of the new sulfur cubes. Probably by accident. You see, a big limitation of our current technology is the distribution. The method we use to split all the items you want to smelt across all the furnaces. As it stands, pretty much everyone out there just uses rails and it works fine, but fast it is not. I recently had the idea of using a mob to drag a boat chest across a bunch of hoppers in order to speed up this process. But yeah, it wasn't exactly better. Like, at all. I'd given up on the idea until Mojang swept in with a brand new sulfur cube mechanic. Everyone else was either thinking up minigame ideas or just flat out calling it useless. But I knew, I knew, my idea was finally going to work. In this video, I'll take you through all the mechanics you need to know about in order to design your own one of these. Welcome back to Minecraft Engineering. If you're new here, this is a series that I started in order to improve my own ability when it comes to Minecraft farm design. I'm personally deeply interested in the systems architecture, and I saw the potential a lot of those principles had when applied to stuff other than software and robotics. The first fundamental, in my opinion, at least when applied to Minecraft, is that if you want to understand the system, first you have to understand all the parts that it's made of. I don't believe in following tutorials, so it wouldn't really make sense for me to make one. Instead, we'll briefly touch on all the individual mechanics you need to understand before I show you my final design. Like always, what I came up with isn't supposed to be the be-all end-all, or even just good. I'm still learning, after all, but hopefully I can at least do my part in advancing the technology. I think that's pretty exciting, so let's get to it. If you're interested in seeing me struggle with everything I'm going to mention today, then go check out the last episode, where I came up with this monstrosity. Not as structured as I typically aim for, but it was still a lot of fun. Now, this is the kind of stuff we're trying to get to, but we're not quite ready for that yet. So, let's start off with the basics. This is a Minecraft furnace. Fuel goes down here, and the stuff you want to smelt goes up here. Every item will take 10 seconds to smelt, and there's nothing we can do about it. So, how do we speed it up? Multiple furnaces, of course. But we don't want to have to run around and put stuff into every single furnace, so we need a way of adding and removing items automatically. We can do that with hoppers. In from the top for the ores, in from the side for the fuel. If you want to remove the finished items, a hopper on the bottom will do that for you. Now, we still haven't solved the problem. We'd still need to add the items manually, so we want to automate distribution. You need to split your items evenly across all your furnaces, otherwise you haven't saved any time at all. The only way I know of doing that is by moving an entity with an inventory over the top of the hopper line at some constant speed. That means dragging a boat chest with a lead or using a hopper minecart. Now you want two separate distribution systems, one for the fuel and one for the smeltable items. In the past, you'd have done both of these as hopper minecart systems, but now we want to use the sulfur cube method, which is much faster. You won't get nearly as much benefit from speeding up the fuel line as you will from speeding up the smeltables line, so doing a combination here actually makes some sense. You're welcome to do both as boats, but I found that added some avoidable complexity. Now, if we're going to use the rails for the fuel, it would probably be a good idea to think up some kind of loader system so that we don't have to manually trigger it every single time. Now, this has been done basically a million times by a million different people, but it's kind of an essential part of the build because we don't want to start distributing fuel until we have at least the amount of fuel that you would need to cover every single furnace. Does that make sense? No, let me try again. For example, if you have 64 furnaces, you want at least 128 in that hopper minecart before you send it off, assuming you're going to do that bounce back thing. Because if you do any less than that, you're going to have some furnaces with fuel and some without. Since this is a relatively simple redstone component, we're going to try and speed run this, alright? Right, you've got your chest up at this level. That means you need a detector rail here. You could go up with one. You need to break that. The next piece of the puzzle is going to be some kind of fence gate on top of this block, a normal rail, and you want to make sure you place this before you break that, otherwise it gets updated. All this is going to be powered rails. Make sure to actually power them. All right, now if you place a hopper minecart on this here block, it can't move off because its hitbox, I think, intersects with this fence gate. If you open this, it can move. If you close, it cannot. What this detector rail does is it allows us to take a redstone signal from this hopper minecart. We want at least 2 stacks, which gives us a redstone power of what? 6, I think, something like that. Now, you have to be careful. You can also get a redstone power of 6 from slightly less than 2 stacks. So we need the number up from 2 stacks. So we need to figure out what gives us a redstone signal strength of 7. It appears to be somewhere around 2 stacks and 10 items. Cool. Now you just need a comparator into the side of that. And this is a neat little trick. You can just do this as a crafter and select 7 of these. Now, this comparator will only turn on when the 2 stacks and 10th item enters this hopper minecart. When that happens, we want to just open this fence gate. And here's a little trick. If you ever work with redstone, that you want to be able to switch on and off manually as well. So we also want to stop this minecart from ever leaving if we want to. It's normally good to do double torches like this. Of course, it will just keep bouncing if there's nowhere to put the items. So let's try that one again. And it stays. Now, that took 2 items. We just need to add 2 back into there. All right, tiny mistake. No need to panic. Found the problem. If you have the fence gate this way, the chests actually need to be on this block. If you have the fence gate this way, lengthwise like that, you got to put the chest up 1. Huh. Who knew? Try that one more time. 2 items. Off it moves. There it comes back. Now, if you're wondering how to actually switch this off, you can just permanently power that block up there, and then this thing can never move off, right? And then when you unpower it, it can. Yeah, I think the output state of this actually matches up with the logic gate. I can't be bothered to think which one. That's pretty much the hardest part of our whole rail network complete. So we can finally get onto the fun stuff. Now, before we get onto the specifics of the sulfur cubes, let's just go through some basics of how boats and leads and things work. Boats have a hitbox of some size that I don't know. Either way, you can either fit them onto 2 blocks or kind of like 1.5, like this, with these iron bars on the side. All right, now you can lead boats either yourself or you can attach them to other things to drag them around. This lead will either break when the speed difference between you and the boat is like huge, or it just like breaks like that, right? The distance is too much. Right, so that gives us kind of the basis of our design. We can attach a boat to a sulfur cube and send it flying. So the trick of getting this whole design to work is getting that sulfur cube to move as quickly as possible without breaking the lead. What that means is we need to figure out how to get this thing moving at different speeds, and we also need to figure out at what speeds and conditions the lead will break. That's a lot of experimentation that I've kind of already done, so I'll just quickly run you through my findings, but I do suggest that you try this out for yourself. It is, after all, a lot of fun. You'd want your sulfur cube trapped in a 1x1 like this, and this is 3 different types just to show you. So this is the fast flat type. That's fast, but not as bouncy. This is bouncy, which is also, or almost as fast, but bounces back much more vigorously. And then this is the regular, which is supposed to be a kind of in between of bounciness as far as I understand it. There are a few more types and they all have different behaviors, so play around with these yourself. They do react to wind charges, so you could get them to move like that if you're accurate. But the main 2 ways that I'm currently interested in is the spear and a sticky piston slime block combination. Now, we know how to get them moving, so how do we get them to stop where we want? The first option you have is a honey, and they will stop right on honey. If 1 isn't enough, 2 potentially would be, but 1 seems to be fine for this. Another one, and I hope this wasn't by mistake, I hope this was on purpose, is a slime block. They stop on slime as well. What's really nice is in both cases, they slide slightly further on. So if we do a shelf right there, give it a poke, break that, it'll stop some way into this block. What that allows us to do is it allows us to use a slime block in this space here to launch it. Just for reference, this doesn't actually need to be a shelf. This can be any immovable object. You can put terracotta down there as well if you want to. Then all you need is just give it a little push and it should stop right back Alright, slime plus bounce means it doesn't have enough speed to stop halfway into this block. How do we fix that? The trick to give it enough speed to bounce back all the way is to have a slime block launcher on both sides. Now that may have been too early. How about 1 tick of delay? And that's given us exactly what we wanted. It bounces all the way to one side, bounces back, and stops halfway through the block. From here, the next most important thing is to figure out how fast we can make this thing move without breaking the lead under various conditions. So I've got a quick demonstration set up. There will be 2 different conditions, so one for the boat that you're dragging on ice, and then one for a boat that you're dragging on whatever normal material. You can see the difference. Before we get to that though, of our 2 launching methods, one being the slime block and the other being spears, we only have one automated so far. We've got to figure out a way to make that spear launch the sulfur cube automatically. Now I've already struggled with figuring out this design in the past, so I'm going to build it quickly and then I'll take you through all the decisions. And this is the setup you need. Your sulfur cube on this block resting on either of the 2 blocks that make it go slower, right? So that's honey and slime. You need this piglin to be at a distance where the snow golem can see it, but the piglin, when bouncing up against this barrier here, can't reach the snow golem. I've found this configuration to work, but I'm sure there are other ones. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks away, with the piglin bouncing off 2 blocks below the sulfur cube and the snow golem standing 1/2 slab up. As far as I know, or as far as I remember, this can't just be a straight track, because at that point the visibility doesn't happen, and this can't bounce up against the slime block because then the snow golem can be reached by that spear. This snow golem needs 1.5 blocks of visibility from its feet up to its head to be able to see this piglin, and you also have to either have a trapdoor or a shelf in the block after the slime or the honey, otherwise this just goes flying straight through here. It appears to only properly slow down on the bounce and not on the initial entry. If you're not using slime blocks to launch anything, then it's probably a better idea to use honey at the bottom here. I've just found that to be a little more consistent, and I think it slows the sulfur cube down more. Once again, you can control the speed of the launch by either picking the block that you put in the sulfur cube. At some point we gotta come up with better terminology for that, or by choosing the enchantment level of the spear. So this is a knockback 2, and that goes pretty fast. All right, let's get this set back to peaceful. I refuse to deal with those slimes. Now we just quickly need to test under what conditions these leads break. We're going to be looking at how these things behave for the 2 launch methods we've looked at, which are the spears and the slime blocks. In each case, we're going to have 1 boat on ice and 1 boat on not ice. Since the slime block is the slower launch method, we're just going to be testing that in the middle, and then we'll do the spears up top and down below, and we'll see how that goes. Starting off with slime in the middle, and that looks good for both of our cases. Next up is just the normal unenchanted spear. Also looks good, no breakage. Now we have knockback 1. Seems good on ice, but it broke on the right side over here. And we might as well test knockback 2, but that breaks even the lead of the boat that was on the ice. Next up, we can attach both boats to that top sulfur block, and we can repeat the tests. I'm sure the normal spear will be fine. In fact, it looks faster. Knockback 1. Good on both sides, and then I'm expecting knockback 2 will, break both. Now the same test where the sulfur cube is below the boats, unenchanted spear, and the one on the right breaks by the looks of it. That's very interesting. Let's try knockback 1. Looks fine on ice. Knockback 2. And it breaks. As far as I know, there are more variables than this, so you might need to fine-tune the actual distance between the sulfur cube and the boats that you're trying to drag around. But in general, it looks like we have more leeway up top and less leeway down bottom. Before we get to my final 2 designs, let's talk numbers. Yes, these numbers are important, don't click off. First of all, let's calculate the theoretical maximum number of items that 64 furnaces can smelt. Now, the first hard limitation is that we need 10 seconds per item for each furnace. That means our furnaces can smelt 64 items every 10 seconds, so we roughly want to see 6.4 items every second. For reference, this is hopper speed. That basically means how many items can go through one hopper line like this every second. For one hopper line, you can get 2.5 items per second, 2 hopper lines 5, and 4 hopper lines 10. So that means we need at minimum 4 hopper lines to deal with the full output of a 64 furnace array. Now all those numbers are very nice, but how do we actually use them to test our designs? At the moment we have a theoretical maximum rate, but that's pretty much impossible to validate. So the question becomes, how do we benchmark our designs? Bearing in mind that I haven't really looked into any other people's designs, so I'm not aware of any existing benchmarks, I decided we should score each design based on the time that it takes to smelt one single chest worth of items. That gives us 1,728 items and a theoretical minimum time of 270 seconds. So this is the plan. We fill up one single chest worth of items, send it on its way, do a 270-second tick sprint, and at the end of it, see in what kind of state we are. It's not overly scientific, but I think it should be good enough just in order to compare designs. This is the design from last video, and while I currently have no method of turning it on and keeping it on, it's not too difficult to add. Right, this test is ready. We've got a single chest of items loaded up. Output is empty. All right, let's do it. Right, sprint is over and we have one line smelted. What does this boat look like? Let's see. Try and catch it. Right, everything has been distributed and everything has been smelted. The issue is this hopper line. As you can see, one single hopper line is about a bit more than a third of the theoretical maximum speed. So this hopper line is clearly the bottleneck for this design. The furnaces have all stopped smelting a long time ago and we're still just about halfway. I got a very good comment on the last video that putting that double chest in the middle will pretty much exactly double the speed, so let's give that a go. Exact same test, but now we've put this chest in the middle, so this is effectively now two hopper lines. So we should see the first two lines fill up since the speed is doubled. So the test has been reset. Let's kick it off. All right, the tick sprint is done and we are about 2 lines and then 2 stacks. We do actually still have some smelting by the looks of it. The boat chest is empty, but it looks like the distribution is actually not fast enough to keep up with that theoretical maximum. It's pretty close though. And that finally brings us to this. Once again, incorporating some great feedback from last video, I decided to do a double hopper line design. Since a boat can fit across 2 different hopper lines, that means the whole thing only needs to travel basically half the distance to do a full distribution. The sulfur cube is being controlled by a slime block launcher, which you can set to either single send or multi-send. And what the multi-send does, it just activates this pressure plate. This is what the redstone looks like on the back. And this is what the slime block launcher return thingy looks like at the end of the line here. I decided to do the fuel line with a rail. The idea being that it's fed by either a kelp or a bamboo farm, some sort of renewable resource. And then keeping in mind that the boat needs to occupy the space, this rail can't go directly beneath these blocks. It's got to go out one. We've got 2 hopper lines in the back that kind of split around the middle at the halfway point. And then the front 32 furnaces have another 2 hopper lines. That puts us at 4 times hopper speed, basically more than enough to keep up with the theoretical maximum smelting rate. The idea is obviously here that the fuel input is handled automatically, but here we just have a single double chest with a basic hopper minecart loader. No override switch because I'm not particularly worried about chunks unloading in this version, but you might want to include that if you ever build this in survival. Bear in mind that we do already have a decent amount of fuel loaded into the system, and if you don't have this running off of an automatic farm and that farm's output isn't enough to keep up with your smelting requirements, that the fuel will become a bottleneck, so be careful. All right, the test is pretty much ready to go if I don't actually get into the boat. There we go, full single chest. Output is empty to start off with. All we pretty much need to do is press this button. All right, the sprint is complete and smelting seems to be done. There we go. As easy as that. The way I see it, that's pretty close to the limit. I'm sure there's still a lot of improvements that can be made to this design, especially considering you can pretty much only smelt 27 stacks at a time. But like I said, the point of this video was not to figure out the best possible combination. It was to explore the limits of the technology and come up with something that I would personally be happy to use in my survival world. Now, During the recording of this video, I received some devastating news. You know how I said I'd previously experimented with mobs pulling around boats? There was something I never considered. I never considered boats pulling other boats. And the way that boats slide on ice, they just happen to have a lot more momentum or a lot less friction than normal mobs do. So yes, you don't actually have to wait for the sulfur cube drop to implement this design right now. Let me show you how to do that. Before I get into it, this was not my idea. I received this comment on Reddit. Right, all you need to do is you need to double up this ice line. It needs to explicitly be blue ice. No other ice type works as far as I've tested it. The button moves one back. The lever kind of flips around and moves two back. This is how that looks from the other side. But yeah, this actually works. And this actually works right now. I still think the sulfur cube design has a lot of potential. Right now, I just have it sliding far enough to cover that 32 long block line of furnaces, but the actual sulfur cube can slide a lot further than that. This here is pretty much the limit of how far you can slide the boat, but like I said, I wasn't trying to come up with the best or biggest scale design. I was just trying to come up with something that worked good enough. And this works pretty much just as well. So let's flick it to multi-send and... Alright, that seems to be an interesting feature of this, but let's do that same tick sprint. Hopefully I haven't wasted too much time here. And watch this. The sprint is complete, and the smelting should also be complete. There we go. This has not been set up with 4 hopper lines, so this is running at dual hopper speed, so keep that in mind. But as far as the actual smelting and distribution time goes, it's pretty much the same as the design with the sulfur cubes. Yeah, I thought I was starting a revolution, but it turns out this technology already exists. Apparently coming up with new stuff in a game with millions of players is quite hard. Who knew? If you found this video helpful or informative in any way, please consider dropping a like or pressing subscribe. It really does help. But that's all from me for today. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.